manager disappears in the middle of the night.
The TV was on, but she wasn't in bed.
They found the truck. There were no keys. There were no notes.
Was she lured away from her family home?
She met a boy on spring break.
Or did she run away?
She disappeared into thin air. Nobody knew where she was.
Investigators traveled thousands of miles hunting their suspect.
Right away, our team turned to the Navy intelligence and said, can you find this person?
And unravel a twisted plot that began at their doorstep.
They devised a plan to record her phone conversations.
He says, no, don't go talk to the police. Stick to the plan.
He became this avenging angel. He was going to avenge her death by bringing this all to light.
With scenic vistas that stretch for miles, Applegate, California is a quiet town tucked into the Sierra Nevada mountain range.
Applegate is a beautiful place. It's high enough that you get a little bit of snow, but not a lot. And the fall colors are just beautiful as the leaves turn.
On a tranquil fall evening in Applegate, the normally serene hills above town are crawling with police activity.
We were headed to the foothills of Applegate that night because we were working on a missing persons case, and one of the suspects in the case had given us this information. That area is very secluded, it's wooded, it's off of a main road.
The particular location was isolated off the road and actually a place where people just discard things. There were propane tanks there, there was an old trailer.
There were a lot of things around that area where things had been dumped. But then we saw a mattress that was covering a dirt mound. And as we gently lifted that mattress off of that dirt mound, we found an area that looked like it had just been freshly dug. And that created a profound sense of, this is real.
It's a heart-wrenching discovery and could signal the end to a months-long search for a beloved local resident.
In the dark, it's really hard to process a crime scene. Every small thing had to be retained. So we set up a perimeter and cordoned everything off as a crime scene until the next morning.
As dawn breaks, the somber task of forensic excavation begins in earnest.
As they began to remove the dirt, one of the things that they first saw was it looked like skin. And they brushed that off, and they confirmed for sure that there were human remains buried there.
They found a clump of blonde hair and some significant degree of decomposition at that point.
The remains and the clothing indicate to investigators that this is the body of a female.
There was something, though, that was uncommon for buried cases. They noticed that there was this black, tarry substance on her skin, like something had been poured on her.
A body was buried in the woods. My questions were what anyone would ask. I think, well, how did this happen? Who did it?
And that's really where an investigation begins.
California is an incredible small town. It is nestled right at the base of the foothills. It was a gold rush town. It has architecture from the 1800s. It's really the jewel of Northern California. It is a family-oriented place where people just love to live and work and raise families.
The idyllic setting feels like paradise for Lynette and Don Vandershoot and their 2 daughters.
We moved up here to be closer to nature, away from the city of Vacaville, just all the hustle and bustle.
We moved to Auburn just before my 13th birthday.
I always wanted to live in the foothills here. It's just a gorgeous place and the communities are nice.
Once the family is settled in Auburn, Christine and her younger sister Justine build a picture-perfect childhood together.
We were 18 months apart, and we were pretty much best friends. We shared everything together. Birthdays and friends and sleepovers. We live on 2 acres of hill. We would take this go-kart and go down the hills. We had a trampoline in the front yard. We did all of the stupid stuff that you're not supposed to do. It was so much fun.
Justine loved her clothing, softball, cheerleading, soccer, anything. She always had to be doing something. She wasn't one just to sit home behind a computer.
My mom and dad would always make sure there was food on the table for anyone that was over. Everyone wanted to be there because it was just a fun house to be at.
In the summer of 2002, Christine invites a group of high school friends over, including longtime friend Brandon Fernandez.
We had a pool party for my birthday. We had a lot of friends over. I had been friends with Brandon for several years prior, and he was bringing a new friend, Danny, over. For whatever reason, Danny and Justine hit it off.
Justine just thought, oh, he's so cute. And so from that day, they just started, doing stuff.
He was around all the time. And if Justine wanted to be around him, we wanted to be around him. After a year, and they seemed to really love each other, he was a part of our family.
In 2003, with high school graduation around the corner, Justine finds a part-time job at a cardiologist's office, using the money to help pay for her dream car.
She just wanted this little Chevy S10. She wanted it slammed to the ground, and my dad helped her put the lowering springs on it.
She was in heaven. She loved that thing.
For the Vandershoot family, and Justine in particular, life is good. It's the end of Labor Day weekend, and Don and Lynette have just returned from their cabin in the mountains.
And then we came home after the weekend that Monday, got home and bam, fired up the barbecue. That's the first thing I did. We had chicken and some veggies or something. And Danny was there for dinner.
Danny probably maybe stayed till about 8 or so after dinner and then left. And she talked a long time to Christine on the phone because her sister had just gone off to junior college in Napa.
As Lynette and Don head off to bed, they say goodnight to Justine, who's still on the phone with her sister. It's still dark when Lynette wakes up to face the work week.
I was going to work, I think, at 5 in the morning. I noticed the front door was open. Her truck was gone, so I went back to her bedroom. Her bedroom door was shut, so I opened it. The dog was there, the TV was on, but she wasn't in bed. I was mad that she had left the house. I thought she probably went to Danny's apartment and maybe she fell asleep. So I went to work, called her cell phone, said, "You call me as soon as you get this, you're in trouble." And then it wasn't until Danny called me that afternoon, early afternoon, and said, "Did I know where Justine was?" And I go, "What do you mean, where's Justine?" He goes, "I took her lunch to work, and she didn't show up for work." I called Dawn, I said, "Something's wrong."
It's just not like her to just go off, maybe not call or something.
She is very responsible. She wasn't one just to take off and go. That's not our family. We're a very tight family.
I was on my lunch break from college, sitting in my truck, and my mom had called me and asking if I'd seen Justine or heard from her. I was like, "What?" I talked to her last night, so I ended up just ditching my classes and going home.
Lynette and Dawn phoned Justine's friends, but no one has heard from her. Certain something is terribly wrong, Lynette and Dawn waste no time calling the Placer County Sheriff's Department to report their daughter missing.
It was evident. This is not a typical runaway thing. This is not. The door was open. Cars missing, personal items left in the bedroom. She's missing. Obviously, Justine came from just an incredibly loving family. So this is not normal. I think that there was that gut feeling right away that something bad had happened.
Kids aren't supposed to go missing. And everyone starts to think, well, was she snatched?
We held a candlelight vigil.
There was a strange person. He was pacing and smoking. Dropped whatever he had in his hand, and he left. We had to try to identify this person.
It's been less than 24 hours since Lynette Vandershoot awoke to discover the front door open and her 17-year-old daughter's bedroom empty. The Vandershoots tell investigators their daughter Christine had a late-night phone call with her sister. She might have been the last person to speak with Justine.
They were really interested in our last conversation, so I told them everything. I remember Justine was asking me what class I was going to be going to. We were just talking about daily life things. All I said was, "I love you."
As the investigation had progressed, we go out to that circle of intimacy from boyfriends to their friends to roommates.
The next person that we interviewed was Danny. He told us that he had gone over to the Vandershoot house the night before.
He confirmed they had dinner that night at Justine's mom and dad's house. And he went home. And that was the last he saw of her.
Danny indicated that after he'd left the Vandershoot residence and had stopped at a 7-Eleven to buy a soda on the way. After that, he'd gone home.
We went to the 7-Eleven, and we were able to corroborate it. That day, Daddy went to her job and to her school and talked to her teacher. Justine wasn't there. He laid out every aspect of what he had done the morning of the 2nd.
And he had no idea where she could possibly be.
Their relationship was somewhat typical. Nothing that seemed out of the ordinary in the context of young teenagers in love.
Police follow up with Danny's roommate, Brandon Fernandez.
Brandon had indicated that he had been with Danny, and the two of them were alone in their apartment that night, and they hadn't left. Justine wasn't with them.
We thought there was a possibility that something was wrong because generally if Justine would go somewhere, she would leave a note for her mom. She would communicate with her boyfriend. But she disappeared into thin air. Nobody knew where she was.
Though Justine has only been gone 24 hours, investigators know time is critical in a missing persons case.
We immediately began to put out informational bulletins to be on the lookout for a missing person, missing juvenile. Went to all the law enforcement agencies in our region.
We put out bolos through news media, every resource that we could. Flyers were made. Flyers were posted all around town, everywhere on almost every pole going up the road towards their house. Neighbors were talked to. Friends were talked to.
Search warrants were issued for her cell phone number. That information came back quickly that she was in fact in the Auburn-Applegate area the last time that cell phone was used.
Cell towers in the mountainous area are unreliable. Zeroing in on Justine's location could be a needle in a haystack. Fearing their daughter could have had a car accident on the winding roads of Auburn, Justine's parents searched the area on their own.
Dawn and I went driving, and we started at Dry Creek all the way down into Auburn. We went both sides of 80, up and down from our exit down to the main town. We even checked the gas stations. We were showing pictures to see if she'd stop for gas, and they said no.
My main thing on my mind is we got the wider area that we can search, you know. I just know we're gonna find her.
I've tried calling her number every day. Just get her voicemail.
Just 2 days after Justine was last seen, investigators catch a break.
On September 3rd, her truck was located. It was in a park and ride nearby in Clipper Gap.
Justine's friends were putting flyers on the windshields in the park and ride. And her best friend called me. She goes, I found Justine's truck. I found it.
When the investigators got there, the car was locked, and there was really nothing about it that was unusual. There were no keys. There were no notes. It looked like it had been locked and parked, and she disappeared.
The park and ride that her vehicle was found was just a couple of miles from her home. She's not broken down. She didn't roll her car over into a ditch.
That truck was her life. And for her not to be with the truck, something was really wrong.
It starts to sort of raise those red flags that foul play is likely. People don't just disappear.
I-80 runs all the way up through the state, so we had no idea what had happened to her. We had no idea where she had gone.
2 days into the investigation of missing 17-year-old Justine Vandershoot, her truck is located near the entrance to a major California highway. While investigators widen their search, they also continue combing the local area where Justine's cell phone pinged.
From the moment Justine was missing, the community got behind the Vandershoots to support them in any way they could. People were out looking everywhere.
Despite the outpouring of effort, no trace of Justine is found.
There's that fear that after a couple of days go by with no new clues, and now it just sort of feels stuck. And that's that moment that every investigator and prosecutor dreads, that you think, is this it? Is this where it ends and the case goes cold? And the longer and colder a case gets, the harder it is to solve.
8 days after Justine was last seen, her family gathers the community together.
We held a candlelight vigil up the park and ride where a truck was found. There's news media there.
It was just overwhelming, the support that we had and the people.
For investigators, the event is also an opportunity.
Anytime where there's a missing person, profilers have determined that the suspect that's actually involved in that missing situation could show up and be present at that vigil. So what we do as investigators is we have somebody there and they videotape.
And there was a person, strange person, standing off to the side, kind of pacing and smoking. And no one recognized that person. And he was approached, and he had something in his hand. They said, "Would you like a flyer?" He goes, "No." Abrupt. Weird. And people thought that was strange. He dropped whatever he had in his hand. And he left.
Police returned to the parking lot to search the area, hoping to find what the man had dropped.
It was almost this little glassy home called Daughter. It was the strangest thing. He just dropped it. So we had to try to identify this person. We took fingerprints off the glass and tracked that guy down.
That plaque had a poem on it about a girl, and come to find out, he had lost a daughter, and he had left that plaque there in her memory.
He was totally unconnected. Didn't know the family. They didn't know Justine. They were just there to try to physically show their support for the family of this girl.
12 days into Justine's disappearance, investigators circle back to Justine's closest friends, hoping to shake loose new information.
The more we filled in with these interviews, the more of the picture becomes potentially clearer. Justine and Danny's relationship was rockier than maybe people would have thought.
There were some friends that had said that Justine had met somebody in Florida when she was there on vacation. And some of those friends were saying she probably took off and went there to be with this guy.
Her best friend's mom worked for Delta Airlines. She got to fly there for spring break. Her and her girlfriend had a great time spring break on the beach in Florida. And she met a boy down there.
A couple of weeks before Justine had disappeared, she had given Lynette some pictures of this person. And all they knew about him really was that his name was Dave.
They met in Florida, but he was in the Navy.
If there's a chance that Justine met up with this new love interest, investigators need to find him.
Right away, our team turned to the Navy intelligence, their police, basically, and said, "Can you find this person?"
The man named Dave is a Navy sailor stationed in Pensacola, Florida. The beach town is more than 2,400 miles from Clipper Gap.
Lynette said that Justine only had about $20 when she left, and that there wasn't any way that Justine would have had the means to find her way out of even Clipper Gap, much less the state of California, without help.
did she park there and meet him? It's Interstate 80. It goes all the way to, Massachusetts. What the hell? Where is she now?
They were both taken into custody shortly thereafter.
We had to get one of them to turn on the other. Then the FBI agent looked at him and said, "Have you ever seen anybody die?"
A week into the disappearance of Justine Vandershoot, investigators suspect she may be with a naval sailor she met on spring break.
We found out where he was stationed. We were able to locate a commander on the base, and that commander assisted us in our investigation. And he was interviewed. It was determined that yes, this guy, Dave, did establish a friendship with Justine while Justine was there. But as of August, they had broken off all communication. And he had no idea where she might have been. We were able to rule him out as a suspect.
Though the sailor is ruled out, investigators wonder if Justine's boyfriend was aware of the spring fling.
Justine's friends were reporting that the guy she had met in Florida, it drove Danny mad.
Investigators consider if Danny's jealousy gave him motive to want to harm Justine. They dig deeper into their relationship and learn that Justine spent a lot of time at Danny's apartment with Danny and his roommate Brandon.
Danny and Brandon and Justine would spend time with each other. That there was some tension between Brandon and Justine. Justine knew Brandon was cheating on his girlfriend.
She had talked to his girlfriend, and she and the current girlfriend decided to confront Brandon. He didn't trust Justine.
The tension between Brandon and Justine causes investigators to take a closer look at Brandon. They soon learn he's been in trouble with the law.
Brandon was a techie. He was a computer guy. He was smart in that sense. But he had some run-ins with the high school, tapped into the computer system changing grades, and had faced some minor criminal offenses.
Brandon had indicated that he had been with Danny, and the two of them were alone in their apartment that night, and they hadn't left. And the investigators immediately had their own internal red flags going up when the only alibi for Brandon is Danny, and the only alibi for Danny is Brandon.
But as investigators dig deeper into Brandon and Danny's alibis, they discovered that the two weren't alone in their apartment on the night of September 1st, when Justine disappeared.
During some later interviews with Justine's friends, we found out that two individuals that were there were Clayton and Gary, and they were visiting Brandon from Alabama.
There was a question about when Danny and Brandon would have been at the apartment, and their friends would have been able to shoot holes in their alibi. Ultimately, the friends tried to corroborate the alibi, but it collapsed relatively quickly. One of those friends ultimately agreed to cooperate with law enforcement and do a pretext telephone call under the direction of law enforcement to try and record Brandon.
So Clayton called Brandon and told Brandon that his father thought that he should go talk to the police about what he knew. And at that point, Brandon Fernandez says, "No, don't go talk to the police. You'll f*** everything up. Only talk about what we agreed about, or you're going to screw us. Stick to the plan."
Brandon was ultimately caught caught in that call, encouraging his friend to go along with a lie.
Brandon and Danny's alibi is starting to crumble.
We knew that we needed to interview one of them, either Danny or Brandon, and hopefully get one of them to turn on the other. Danny had been interviewed. His stand was, I was home. I wasn't there. I didn't have anything to do with it.
But with Brandon's lie on record, investigators try a different approach with him.
The FBI really understands psychology and looking at crime patterns. And so we contacted the FBI and asked them if they would assist us in the case.
So we brought Brandon to the FBI headquarters in Sacramento to interview him.
The first hour of the interview was pretty much Brandon telling the same story, that he was home that night and he didn't have anything to do with it, and Danny was home that night. What finally turned the table was when the FBI agent looked at him and said, have you ever seen anybody die? And suddenly Brandon's demeanor changed.
In a calculated move, FBI agents play the recorded phone conversation in which Brandon asked his friend to lie for him and Danny.
It had exactly the intended effect.
And that's what prompted him to start to talk.
He said Danny's obsession with her cheating on him was creating a pressure cooker. Danny and Brandon had wanted to catch Justine cheating or listen to her talking to other people or talking about Danny and Brandon. Brandon had the capability and knowledge to record Justine's phone conversations, and they devised a plan to do it.
When we interviewed Brandon, he told us that Danny had gotten onto Justine's computer and he had tapped her phone.
She was still talking to the boy in Florida, and he was listening the entire time. This drove Danny mad. This was an act of infidelity on her part, and in his mind, she needed to be punished for it. Because in his mind, she belonged to him. When he's confronted with inconsistencies and lies, it becomes clear that time is up.
He basically confessed. But he also said that Danny, the boyfriend, had committed the murder.
After bringing suspect Brandon Fernandez to FBI headquarters, investigators finally get a confession.
He said there's a plan to get Justine out of the house that night. The ruse that Danny and Brandon had used was sneaking out that night to go try and steal a couple of marijuana plants from a grow that was up in the hills.
Danny called Justine and he says, just come with us.
She meets them at the park and ride, where her car was ultimately found, drives in Brandon's car with Danny to this location.
With Brandon behind the wheel, he follows the twisting road to the base of the mountain at Applegate. Brandon admits to crafting a playlist as part of the plan.
In order to further punish her, they had made this mixtape.
They took the recordings that Danny had gotten off of her phone, and Brandon put together the CD and integrated music with what Justine had said.
And this song is played as a final soundtrack of her life so that she would understand why she was being punished for what she had done.
They parked a car, and Danny said, "You need to go take a walk for a while, because I need to talk to Justine." And Brandon said that he wandered off. He heard what he thought was a scream and a horn honk. And when he went back up there, he saw Justine laying on the ground. There was a taser on the ground. And Danny looked at him and said, "I don't have to deal with her anymore. My life is now free. I win." And they carried Justine over to an area, dug a shallow grave.
They put her in that hole. And then they attempt to cover the body in a substance that is designed to degrade her body and decompose her quicker.
And then they buried her.
Danny moved a mattress over the grave to try to further conceal it.
Realizing he's implicated himself in the twisted murder scheme, Brandon attempts to bargain with investigators.
Brandon became, in his own mind, this avenging angel. He was going to avenge her death by bringing this all to light.
He would be able to show us where she had been buried in the woods.
Though it's well after dark, investigators have Brandon bring the team to the gravesite in the hills above Applegate, California.
As soon as Brandon got out of the car, he guided us through the area, told us where to look, and we were shining our flashlights, and it hit on something shiny. He said, "That's her necklace. That's her necklace that she had on that night." And it was laying right there in the dirt. And then as we went over to where the grave was, there was a mattress lying on top of it. And we lifted that mattress up, and there was evidence of a freshly dug grave. And at that point, he said that that's where she is.
It was not the result we want. Yeah, I can't imagine. You know, as a parent, can't imagine. And my heart broke.
16 days after the murder, the forensic team waits for daybreak to continue the excavation. Until then, investigators must deliver the devastating news to the family.
Angela walked in, thought, oh, she found her, but she was shaking her head, and I just broke down crying. Justine wasn't coming home anymore.
And, at that point, you just, wow, you lose everything.
As dawn breaks, crime scene investigators begin the mournful task of exhuming the body.
Painstakingly, the dirt was removed with just hand trowels. You're trying to keep any evidence that might be there.
And as they sift through the dirt and rock, a haunting discovery is made.
The CD that was played for Justine on the drive there was found at the scene. The soundtrack dubbed over with tracks of her voice.
It's not long before the forensic team reach human remains.
Finally, when the dirt was removed, they found her body, put it into a body bag to be moved to our facility for an autopsy.
At the sheriff's station, Danny is brought into an interrogation room for further questioning.
Danny actually didn't make a statement about what had occurred until we played him a portion of what Brandon said in the interview, and Danny said, no, that's not what happened at all. He knew that that's what we were going up there to do, and Brandon tased her. He put the taser up next to her, which is what made her pass out.
And in his story, Danny, the boyfriend, says, my roommate Brandon strangled her.
Though each blame the other for Justine's murder, investigators are certain both are deeply entangled in the sinister plot. Danny Bessemer and Brandon Fernandez are charged with the murder of Justine Vandershoot.
Either Danny or Brandon. Only one of them was telling the truth. Who killed Justine?
The body of 17-year-old Justine Vandershoot has been discovered buried in the woods above Applegate, California. Danny Bessemer and Brandon Fernandez have been arrested and charged with murder. Though best friends, each blames the other for the gruesome crime. But which one is telling the truth?
The idea that Brandon may be responsible for Justine's disappearance was certainly a working theory, but it was hard to think that that would happen without Danny's knowledge, or likely without his participation. We know they're lying. They were both taken into custody shortly thereafter. When Brandon's property, house, work was ultimately searched, there were a number of key pieces of evidence that were found. Most compelling were receipts for a set of tires. And these were new tires that he purchased the day following Justine's disappearance. He knew there would be tire tracks. In the legal sense, we refer to that as consciousness of guilt. And ultimately, on Danny's parents' property as well. Tools that are used to dig the grave are found, a pickaxe and a shovel that are used in the digging of the grave. All of the evidence points to both of them being involved.
As prosecutors prepare their case against Danny and Brandon, the evidence paints a clear picture that this was a premeditated act.
We were able to prove that night. Danny had brought with him a shovel, a pickaxe, gloves, the taser, and the ready-made CD of that song. So it wasn't something that happened spontaneously. This is something that he had thought about for a long time.
When the autopsy report is finally published, it reveals yet another cruel and twisted detail.
There was evidence of strangulation that Danny inflicted on her. And sadly, she was found with dirt in her esophagus and in her stomach. She had ingested it, which indicates she was alive at the time she was buried.
We never knew what had actually been poured over Justine.
It is something that even for the most hardened prosecutor and investigators is something very difficult to wrap your brain around.
Callous, cold-blooded murder.
Family and friends are left reeling from the unfathomable loss.
For all that we gave Danny and showed him what a family was, we were just shocked. that what makes your brain tick like that?
In March of 2005, with the trial looming, the Vandershoot family makes a difficult choice.
It was expressed pretty clearly that the family wants to be able to grieve and move on.
Danny and Brandon are offered a plea deal.
Both defendants admitted responsibility. Danny was convicted by plea of guilty to a first-degree murder and sentenced to a term of 25 years to life in prison.
And because Brendan Fernandez allowed us to know where she was and basically gave us evidence against Danny Bessemer, he was offered 15 years to life.
You never get through grieving, but there does come a time in that process where you start remembering the good things, the times you had together.
We made Justine's garden outside her bedroom window.
It's a gorgeous garden. That's something that we keep her memory alive with.
Every time we see a hummingbird or a butterfly, that's Justine to us. She's watching over us, and we have our little angel.
It gave me comfort to know that she is in heaven. I will see her again.
Mama, loving you ain't too much late on love. As the snow falls gently from above, I'm reminded of that love. Each vacant memory, pure and bright, ancient scenes of our loves. No falling breeze drifting down in each delicate flake. Our love is found, whispers of you in the winter's chill.